Imagine pouring 2 years of relentless effort into a goal, only to come up completely empty. When that happens, the immediate instinct is to retreat, to sit in a dark room, sink into yourself, and try to escape the crushing weight of the wasted effort. In psychology, this is a dangerous avoidance loop. When you instinctively turn away from a failure, you sever your own situational awareness. You cut off your connection to the present moment, and the void gets filled with panic instead of logic. 2.5 millennia ago, a depressed, isolated young man brought this exact feeling to the Buddha. He asked a question that still haunts us. Why do some people manage to navigate through brutal difficulties while others are completely destroyed by them? The Buddha's answer revealed a harsh truth. Escaping the paralysis of a massive failure is never about avoiding the wall you just hit. It requires altering the exact mechanism of how you look at it. To explain this, the Buddha told the story of a fiercely beloved king. This king had just saved his country in a brutal 11-day war, but the victory cost him dearly. He lost one leg, and one of his eyes was destroyed, leaving him with a terrifying facial scar. One day, looking at the portraits of his ancestors, the king decided he needed his own portrait painted, but he laid down 2 strict rules. The painting had to be flawlessly realistic, and it had to inspire future generations. We can map out exactly why this demand sent a shockwave of terror through the kingdom's greatest painters. Look at this matrix. If a painter chooses realism and paints the ugly scars, they risk the king's wrath and severe punishment. But if they flatter him and hide the injuries, they break his rule of total accuracy. Both paths lead to a dead end. Faced with this trap, the veteran painters reacted exactly like a person suffering from burnout. They completely froze. They fixated so heavily on the missing eye and the missing leg that they couldn't see past the king's physical trauma. When a mind is clouded by the absolute fear of negative consequences, it becomes literally blind to any alternative solutions. Nobody would take the job. Enraged by the silence, the king pointed at a young, inexperienced painter in the crowd and forced the mandate onto him: 5 days to deliver or face execution alongside his peers. Naturally, the young man's first night was consumed by the exact same terror and a crushing sense of unfairness. The Buddha identified the solution as a practice of active non-reaction. The painter withdrew into isolation, choosing to observe his fear and the king's injuries without judgment. He didn't try to solve the problem immediately. He simply watched the facts of the case until his internal panic stopped dictating his thoughts. By the 3rd day, the chaotic noise in his head settled. Because his mind achieved total stillness, he stopped fighting the unfairness of the constraint. He simply began looking for a new angle. Look at the spatial geometry of what he ultimately painted. The young man created a portrait of the king in profile, riding a majestic horse and aiming a bow and arrow. If we rotate the perspective, you can see how the horse's body naturally blocks the missing leg from view. And the act of aiming the bow perfectly explains why one eye is closed. The painter didn't lie. He didn't alter a single fact about the king's physical condition. He simply found the precise mathematical angle where the king's permanent flaws translated directly into an act of heroism. Solving an impossible problem rarely requires changing the harsh, immovable facts on the ground. It requires finding the optimal angle of observation. Out in the real world, circumstances are rarely in your control. You cannot erase your past failures, and you cannot undo the permanent scars you've picked up along the way. True artistry in life has nothing to do with holding a paintbrush. It is the cognitive ability to stare at a deeply constrained, seemingly tragic situation and extract the hidden opportunity buried inside it. The Buddha called this drishti me srishti hai. Perception creates reality. If you want to escape the loop of failure, you have to stop running. You have to stand still, observe the problem without a single ounce of judgment, and wait for the correct path to reveal itself. But here is the catch. This level of cognitive reframing is physically impossible if your mind is chaotic. It demands a relentless, intense level of mental concentration. Swami Vivekananda argued that the most significant human breakthroughs are built upon this foundation of concentration. When the mind is still enough to hold a single point of focus, It gains the power to penetrate even the most impossible-looking problems. Mastering this state of mind isn't a gift, but a technical skill. To begin applying the specific methods used to sharpen this level of focus, watch the breakdown of Vivekananda's techniques next.